Working in the organ transplantation industry, it was very evident to me about the gap that was there between the transplantable organ demand and availability. The number of recipients are way more than the number of donors, and that specifically is a very big bridge that we have to gap. So many lives are lost on a daily basis globally.
My name is Eddie Evel. I'm your host, and today I have with us Piyush Padmanabhan. He is a biotech graduate from VIT Institute. He has been part of companies such as Biocon, Roche. While working in the renal and liver organ transplantation sectors in India, he realized the vast abyss between organ demand and availability. He is currently the CEO director at Next Big Innovation Labs, where he and his team push the needle towards a future where organ transplantation wait list will be a thing of the past. The company's focus is to drive the change both on the technology and biology. Today's lab startups from around the world have already 3D printed mini hearts, lungs, kidneys, ears, skins, ovaries, eye corneas. Plus, there are other entrepreneurs who are 3D printing things such as meat, seafood, homes, bridges, buildings. And the list is constantly growing with visionary entrepreneurs pushing the boundaries of what people impossible. So Piyush, really happy to have you on Change I Am Possible podcast. So let's start with your career, your background, so my audience gets a little context on the conversation.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I feel, podcasts like these are important, not for only for our country, but also for people who want to become entrepreneurs or who want to get into the space of tech, which can be quite scary for a few, my story is like any other kid. I mean, I grew up in Bangalore. A few years we were outside India because my father was over there in the Middle East. And I came back to Bangalore, studied, completed my high school here, after which I did my undergraduate degree in biotech from VIT University, Vellore. And after that, I was pretty much, I wanted to stick to my core. And I did not take the job offer from VIT. But in fact, I sat at home for 8 months trying to figure out what to do next. And that's when I got a lucky break at Biocon. I worked there for a few years where my focus was on sales and marketing for kidney and liver transplantation medications. And after which I moved to Roche Pharmaceuticals to get a more of a global outlook. And that's where I sort of, looked at how a multinational looks at the same market. I was in the same market of liver and kidney transplantation, same role in sales and marketing. And after that, I ended up starting my own company. So the transition was, I reached a point where I pretty much got tired of working for other people, and I wanted to work for myself. That was the basic mantra. It is a very cliche mantra, but that's where it started, and that's where the seed was sown, at least in the beginning stages. And a good friend of mine, Alok, we both of us know each other from high school, and he's been involved in 3D printing tech for a very long time since his masters, and both of us kept sharing notes on this, and that's how we got together and started NBIL along with Pooja and Ratan. So that's how the four of us came together. But specifically, yes, for me, it was more of not wanting to work for others, but to work for myself and to build something that could actually change the whole scope of how medicine works. Working in the organ transplantation industry, it was very it was very evident to me about the gap that was there between the transplantable organ demand and availability. The number of recipients are way more than the number of donors, and that specifically is a very big bridge that we have to gap. So many lives are lost on a daily basis globally, and I was looking at what technologies could actually solve this issue, and this is a cause that's very close to my heart because when you're working in the industry, you see what is actually happening from the patient's angle, from the doctor's angle, and from a pharmaceutical angle, and that's where I felt 3D bioprinting can actually help bridge the gap. The technology allows you to build an entire organ from the ground up, and um, it's just that was the other driving motivator for me to actually start something on my own. The fact that I was so enthusiastic about, I'm a tech head in general, but the fact that bioprinting was so interesting was something and that had so much potential to something that was so close to my heart. It hit the ball home for me. So
Lovely,
that's how I started off, and now we are here. We are at MBIS.
lovely, lovely. How cool is that? Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I guess this COVID situation has made everybody an entrepreneur. Obviously, you've been an entrepreneur for much longer time,
Yeah,
but somehow I
yeah,
think we are in a fantastic uh, point in human history. This
yeah,
COVID, yes, obviously it's been disastrous. I mean, world over, and it's disastrous for the people, the families, the lives that has been lost. The economical impact is humongous. We don't really know what's going to happen next. But it definitely has a silver lining. I mean, today I see that there are so many. Homemakers who are becoming entrepreneurs. There are
yeah,
like I mean, I do not watch TV. I stopped watching TV. But there are these fantastic content creators who are creating podcasts. There are these. There's this kid in my building. He's 16 years old. He's now started a business. He started. We have around
wow.
22 plus buildings in a
At
colony.
16 years old,
16 years old, and he started selling
wow.
stuff, and now he's made a WhatsApp group, and and the business is growing. So yes, I mean, entrepreneurship and innovation, I think it all starts with the head. And today I think internet has enabled everyone. And if you are open, and if you understand what's happening globally in the
Yeah,
space of technology, and if you just leverage that, you can create some crazy transformational innovations. 3D printing, I think it's going to revolutionize healthcare. It's at the cusp. I mean, people are just trying to figure out what it is. But when we actually have a 3D printed, feasible, workable,
yeah,
transplantable organ that is going to revolutionize health industry. There are
yeah.
people who I know who are waiting for organs, like my wife's friend. They are in Australia.
Wow.
They have a kid who is somewhere around 2.5 years old. The kid had cancer, and they had to wait for an organ for months, and luckily they got a perfect match. But when I use the term luckily, that means somebody has to pop off, somebody has to die for that
Yeah,
that kid. So but then you are
that's
yeah, that's quite sad. So but yes, you are revolutionizing. You're part of that revolution. So can you talk to us about the current status in the terms of the technology with 3D bioprinting currently?
let me start off with a focus that most bioprinting companies are run by. The focus is this: to bridge that gap. To bridge the gap, that's the holy grail of 3D bioprinting. To bridge the gap between transplantable organ demand and transplantable organ availability, because like you said, right, someone has to pop off for this person to actually get an organ, and that shouldn't be the scenario. We if we have reached we have reached to a stage where we can make machines talk and behave like human beings. Then I think we should first figure out how we can fix the problems that human beings already have, and that's where 3D bioprinting comes to the fore. 3D bioprinting right now is at a stage where there is research that is happening both in academia and industry. It's very interesting because On the academic side, the focus is more towards the clinical aspects. They are looking at how 3D bioprinting can be applied in a more direct to patient sort of an approach. And the industry is looking at the aspects of the engineering. You have companies that are building great bioprinters, and they are also looking at clinical applications. But specifically right now globally, we have not reached a stage where we have got into organs yet. Yeah. So when you're getting to organs, let me break it down for the audience, because organs are made up of cells, and any organ is not made up of one cell type. You have multiple cell types. So you have to ensure that all those cell types grow. The beauty of the human body is that it grows naturally within us. But the moment you take it out and put it in a lab atmosphere, it becomes twice as hard to replicate what is happening within the human body. I mean, any given organism, it heals by itself. So that's the beauty of nature. So bioprinting is pretty much trying to do what nature is trying to do, to build an organ from the ground up. And since the organ is made up of different cell types, putting those cell types together is quite important. And putting them in the right order is also quite important. And that's where the technology part of 3D bioprinting comes in. That's where the materials that are used in 3D bioprinting comes in. And the second problem, the second hurdle that we see is omnipresent within the industry is vasculature, which is veins and arteries. So veins and arteries go to each and every cell. To replicate that outside the human body is really difficult, because these are really tiny, and you need to get that level of precision. Don't get me wrong, there is great research that is happening globally. There's great research that is happening in terms of how to rebuild arteries and veins, and how to get them as small as possible to reach each and every cell. And there is great work that is happening with we call it heterogeneous cell growth, which is basically growing multiple cells at one go. And this is where we see that the technology is at currently. But yes, people have used 3D bioprinters to make a mini heart, like they're done in Israel. And they've built a lung within a sort of a small alveolar sac that can be used for testing. So that's an amazing thing. I know about this Indian researcher. I don't think I should reveal his name, because he's still getting his patent. But he's right now at a point where he started his clinical trials for 3D printed bone constructs to go into patients. And there's some interesting work that is happening in the space. And that's where 3D bioprinting is at. We are at a stage where we have to figure out vasculature, the veins and arteries. We have to figure out how different cells grow together outside the lab, how to layer them one layer on top of the other. So bioprinting, the core concept, I think I forgot to explain, the core concept of bioprinting is 3D printing. So you have the bed and you have the extruder moving. So all these can move in XYZ axes. So you have one layer on top of another layer that is being formed. And in traditional biotechnology methods, you wouldn't be actually able to position these cells specifically, in a specific area. And that's what bioprinting does. It allows you to position these cells in a specific pattern. And the initial pattern is called a scaffold. So in ours, in 3D bioprinting as such, is at a stage where the companies right now globally are developing, they're developing tissues that can be used for testing. So these are small scale tissues, 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters big, that can be used for testing as an alternative to animal testing. Globally, there's a ban in animal testing. People are looking for alternatives, and 3D bioprinting is providing that alternative. Apart from that, it provides a more precise model for testing, because you're getting the cell positioning right. Like I mentioned earlier, positioning those cells are quite important. So when you get that cell positioning right, you're able to actually get this one, you're able to get a tissue that is as close as possible to what it is inside the human body. And that's where 3D bioprinting plays a very important role. And currently it's at that stage, but going into human beings, we believe it will take at least another 10 years, because we have to go through stringent regulatory guidelines and ensure that first of all we have to get over these two hurdles and get those build those complicated organs within a lab. So that's about it overall when you're looking at the bioprinting industry. But there's very interesting stuff, people who are working on the technology as well as on the biotech. So that's where people are working on it. And the last thing I would say is biomaterials. So in 3D printing, you would use plastics and metals. Here you're using biomaterials. So you're using something like gelatin, or you're using something like collagen, which is generally available, in environment.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah. So you said it could take a period of 10 years, but somehow the technology is growing exponentially. And there are so many people around the world who's doing some crazy, crazy things, maybe 10 years, maybe faster. But, whenever this technology becomes a reality, obviously it's going to transform mankind. It's going to transform healthcare. You spoke about nature, how uniquely and how beautifully it performs. I was having a conversation with these guys who are 3D printing meat, 3D printing food, and it's actually quite simple. You take a cell, you put it in a petri dish, you give it nutrients and proteins, and it starts actually thinking that it's alive and starts becoming meat. I think we're living in a fantastic point of time. I'm stressing that again. And it's these crazy entrepreneurs such as yourself who are visionary and who are going for those bold and audacious things and trying to revolutionize medicine. So you have a patented 3D printer. You say that it's India's first 3D customizable bioprinter, right? So can you talk us about that, and also talk us about your partner Autodesk that you're building with?
So Autodesk has been our partner for the past 3-4 years. So we use the softwares to design anything and everything that goes into the machine, including the final cuts that goes into manufacturing and everything. So Autodesk is a big partner for us. We use the software Fusion 360 to actually do most of our work. And in terms of Trivima is, we call it India's first customizable 3D bioprinter. So when we initially started out, we spoke to a lot of researchers. We sort of got an understanding of the space of 3D bioprinting with specific focus on India. And also we spoke to a few global researchers. We were lucky to get those calls. We were nobody that time in the field. And people actually were sweet enough to talk to us. And we were able to understand that there are big challenges when it comes to the engineering. So if you buy, researchers said that, if you purchase a commercial 3D bioprinter, you would be stuck in their engineering ecosystem. So we didn't want that. We didn't want that for ourselves. So, any startup, when you start up, and you want to build a machine, economics comes into play and gives you a reality check. So that's where we had to go looking out for grants. So we looked out for grants from the Karnataka state government, and we got the first Elevate grant. At that point, it was called Idea to POC, and we were lucky enough to be incubated at Bangalore Bioinnovation Center, which is right here at Electronic City in Bangalore. And we within 7 months of getting the grant we got the grant somewhere around April or May 2017, and we were able to build the machine. So the focus for us was to see how can we make this customizable. So the focus was not to build a commercial machine initially. The focus was to build a machine that can actually work for us. So we were focused on bioprinting skin. So we built a machine where, we could customize a lot of parts. So we didn't know what the requirements would be for skin. So we built a machine where we could customize everything from the temperature control, all the way to the axis movements, the axis precision, all of that. And if we required the level of sterility in our printers or did not require it, all of that we were able to maintain. So people are talking about UV lights going through flights and all of that. We use the same UV lights within our printers to ensure that there's a safe,
Sterile.
sterile nature within the printer. And these are things that we put in. Then, we reached out to researchers. We said, hey, we have this printer. We want to test it out. Why don't you just give us some biomaterials? So the same researchers whom we spoke to before, and they were sweet enough to give it to us, and we were able to test across an array of materials that are used in bioprinting. And not to go too scientific, but this was more of artificial as well as natural hydrogens or polymers, I would say, that we used, biopolymers that we used in printing. And specifically, we printed these scaffolds. So the initial constructs of any 3D bioprinting process is called a scaffold. It's just a crisscross pattern that forms a scaffold. And it can be with cells or it can be without cells. And we did that, and we along the way we generated a couple of patents. One of the patents was on precise temperature control, and another one was on precise movement. And 2 days back, we actually got a third patent granted, which was on the process of 3D bioprinting of human skin. So these are three patents that we garnered along the way. And we understood that, researchers wanted that level of customization. So we started speaking out to folks and we said, okay, hey, now we're ready to build printers. So do you guys have any specific requirements? And people are really happy about the fact that, there is a company in India, at least Indian researchers are really happy that there's a company in India that is building bioprinters that is customizable for their specific research requirements. Generally, they would buy an expensive machine that would cost anywhere between 20 lakhs to 1.5 CR. And you have this broad range that you're working with. And and generally, if you buy a machine worth 60, 70 lakhs, and the machine doesn't do it works specifically for that project, but then you have another project in the background. Once that project comes to the fore, you're like, okay, this doesn't work for me anymore. What do I do with this? So that's where the customizability option comes in. So we work with our clients rather than saying, okay, here's a printer, Tata bye-bye, call whenever you require service. So for us, it's more of continuous engagement with the customers. So we pick and choose our customers, people who are doing serious bioprinting research, who understand their requirements completely. And we work with them step by step, first analyzing their requirements and then doing. That's why we say it's a customizable bioprinter and it's not just a bioprinter. And it's India's first, I wouldn't say it's India's first bioprinter. I would say it's India's first customizable bioprinter. Even though there are companies before us that have come, for us, the focus was on customization.
Right. So tell me, what has the traction been on the bioprinter? And besides that, you said you spoke about the bioprinted skin, and you patented that also, right? It's called InnoSkin. So can you talk about that? Is it being tested? Is it being clinically used? What's the status at this point in time with the InnoSkin?
Okay, so in traction with the bioprinter, we have clients in India and abroad both who are using it for various purposes. Since we are under NDAs with these researchers and we work with them at a close level, I cannot reveal the research, but specifically we have clients that are both in India and abroad that are using it for various purposes, right from tumor modeling to printing bone. And but the specific focus for us was to see, now that we had the technology, the next step was ideally to look at how it can be applied, right? And that's where InnoSkin comes in. So we looked at the market. We saw, okay, what is the biggest thing right now that is that 3D bioprinting can solve immediately? And we looked at animal testing. So globally, there are close to around there are many labs around the world that test on animals, sadly, for cosmetics and chemicals.
Right.
And people are bringing in a ban right now. So when you're looking at the European Union, back in 2003, they banned animal testing. But right now there are labs within the US that are still testing on animals. Sadly, there are labs within our country. I think recently, a couple of years back, there was a lab that which was testing on dogs. But these are things that are happening globally, and the companies are now shifting. They're now shifting from animal testing slowly. And see, for pharmaceutical testing, yes, animals will be required in clinical trials because these are drugs that are directly going to patients. People are looking for way around, animals, not using animals for testing. But specifically, if you're looking at cosmetic, chemical, or agrochemical companies, they have the option to shift away from animals, and that's where you're looking at 3D models for testing, and that's where bioprinting comes in. So that's where we started looking at skin. And let me give you an example. So if company XYZ comes out with a shampoo or say a moisturizing cream, they would have a certain level of chemicals within that. However natural they say it is,
Right.
it has some chemicals.
Exactly.
Yeah. So those chemicals have to be tested on the skin, right? And uh, generally, in yesteryears, they would test it on animals. And how can you compare an animal skin to human skin? Because it's completely different, you know? And how can you compare animal hair to human hair? It's completely different. You would need human skin to get the actual level of testing that or the actual results, and that's where uh, uh, you know these companies would actually apply the cream on the animals, and they would see how it would affect the skin, whether it would erode the skin, whether it would cause scars, things like that. And that's where they started looking at alternatives, and the alternatives currently is 3D printed bioprinted skin. And we are building that right now for cosmetic, chemical, and agrochemical companies, FMCG companies, and in certain cases, pharma. Even tobacco companies would have to do testing on the skin. This even blew our mind. But specifically, right now, the focus for us is to develop models that can go into testing as an alternative to animal testing. And but the long term goal for us is to see how it can go into human beings for transplant. So that's where the game changes completely, right? So when you're going into human beings for transplant, we have to get three things right. One is getting sweat glands. Human skin has sweat glands, so getting that right. The second one is hair. Getting the human hair right and the hair follicles, that would really change the game. And the third one is getting the veins and arteries and making sure that they grow properly during the entire regrowth period on the skin. So we are looking at bioprinting human skin that can go into that can go either directly onto patients or as a pre-placement. You figure out what is the area and the diameter, you print it, and then you put it in. But for wounds, cosmetic corrections, we are looking at burn victims, acid victims, people who have undergone really serious skin-based trauma, and how we can actually develop skin that can help them. And or cosmetic correction is so personal; it has to be done right. And if it is done wrong, you're doing injustice to the patient, and that's where we are looking at InnoSkin. InnoSkin, at least for the next 5 years, our goal is to work towards a more clinical aspect where we can take it to the patients. And we believe this cannot be done alone. This cannot be done by a singular company. It has to be done in collaboration. So we are talking to researchers all around the globe to see how we can bring our technologies, how we can bring our knowledge together in order to build human skin that can go into patients. Imagine if you can bioprint human hair, you cure baldness there. So that's where that's the capability that we have. But yes, I'm not saying it's a reality yet. I'm saying it's a capability. and the capability comes when people from multiple disciplines. So bioprinting is sort of like a mix of different disciplines. You have engineers who work on mechanical, electronics, mechatronics, biomedical, who work on the mechanical side, on the engineering side, technology. You have chemists, biomaterial scientists, biochemists who are working on the biomaterial that goes in, and then you have the cell biologists that basically take this all and put it together. So you have three different disciplines that are actually coming in. So the job market also, when you're looking at bioprinting, is growing, as days go by. And um, currently, we believe there is more research happening in the skin domain. A lot of people interested in skin because of what it can potentially be, and that's where we started with skin, and that's where we want to go with skin. And along the way, we are looking at also developing cancer models that can help in cancer therapy development. So we're looking at bioprinting melanoma models, skin models that can go in for testing for treating melanoma, or something like psoriasis, which is a problem with the skin. So we're looking at various other areas where we can actually develop products that can be a game changer and develop real therapies for human beings.
Lovely, lovely. How cool is that? There's this guy called Andrew Hessel. I don't know whether you know about him. He's ex
Okay.
Autodesk, and he's also the founder of Human Genomics. And
Project.
yeah, so he's been talking about programming life, and I think he's one of the forefront guys who understands genomics and understands what a cell can do, how you can produce that, and with artificial intelligence, like you said, I mean, we are getting into an exciting space where uh,
Yeah,
where everything coming in another 10 years is going to look like magic. How
I know,
will
right?
the
Yeah.
world look when we don't need to wait for an organ transplant, but we can 3D print them. And with this 3D printing, it's not just organ transplant, right? We talking about 3D printing food. There are people who are 3D printing buildings. There are people who are 3D printing.
Yeah.
So I think we're living in super exciting time. So you said the three most important thing for 3D printing a human skin is sweat glands, hair, veins, and arteries. What is the rough timelines you think it'll take to have a, a 3D printed skin? And second question, what does your 3D printer do right now? What are the organs it can print right now?
So you put me in a tight spot with respect to the timelines. I have to say that, but it's okay. We are looking at 3D bioprinting human skin. I feel the sweat glands is quite complex because you're dealing with something that's really small, and you have so many of them on your skin. So imagine printing just uh, something as big as my palm, and you imagine the number of sweat glands over there. Getting that level of precision, that's quite difficult. So that's where I feel the technology has to come into play as well. The second one would be the hair follicle, where you're looking at, getting the follicles in the right position with the stem. Your hair grows from stem cells, so that's where we are looking at stem-like cells that can be there. So we believe getting these two aspects right would take the longest. And it would take at least 4 to 5 years for people to figure it out. Everybody's trying. I mean, there are researchers globally that we are speaking to that are trying. They failed, some have succeeded in certain ways. So there are multiple technologies in bioprinting which is coming, which are quite interesting. And the bioprinting domain is closer, I feel, than ever before to get arteries and veins, and because everybody's working on it. And there are researchers that are developing specific biomaterials that can be used for printing arteries and arteries and veins, vasculature in general. So we are living in exciting times, like you said. In terms of our printer, we printed the skin. So our skin is, have you ever peeled your lip? So when you peel it, the skin is that thin. So we're just working on the topmost layer of the skin where most of the work is done. And we are looking at just that thinness right now. But the challenge is when you go deeper. And so we're printing skin right now. We're printed with bone ceramic materials. We're printed with pure synthetic polymers that have been tested for wound healing applications. But yes, we since our focus has been on skin, and we are a startup, we want the future goals for us is to test with clean meat, is to test with organs, multiple different organs such as the liver, the cornea, the bone. So these are things that we are actually looking at. That is in our radar. But we wanted to work on the skin project first, get that right, and then the next step for us will be to actually focus on larger things. We are looking at uh, actually getting into even cancer therapy, like I mentioned before. So these are different areas that we're looking at. So the focus for us is three main goals. One is animal-free R&D. The second one is precision medicine, and the third one is personalized therapy. That's going to be the three mantras that we go by, and the whole goal for us along the way. I mean, the long-term vision is to see how we can get into human beings, get tissues into human beings or organs within into human beings for transplants. That's the entire goal for us.
Lovely.
So it's a step-by-step process.
So, how is 3D bioprinting aiding in the fight against COVID?
So we are living in a time where newer technologies and newer innovations are coming about for COVID, right? Whoever thought that we would be wearing face shields? Whoever thought that we would be using UV lights to sanitize every portion of an airport or an airplane? So we are looking at a time where innovations are changing the world globally, and that's why 3D bioprinting is helping as well. Yes, so the goal of 3D bioprinting is to get into organ transplants and all of that to bridge that gap. But for us, it is more of we see that there are companies out there, there are people out there that are doing some interesting work. A very notable work is with respect to 3D bioprinting of miniature lung models that can be used for testing. So these lung models can be used for testing the new COVID vaccine or the effect of different drugs on a lung that has already been infected with coronavirus. So this is where it's helpful. How is it different from the other models? Is because it helps replicate the what would be inside the body within the lab, which makes it much more easier rather than testing it directly on the patient. With all the fake news going around, I think we need more and more validation, and I think 3D bioprinting is helping in that validation by providing stronger results, at least less of false positives and false negatives.
Lovely. So, can you talk a little bit about your inspiration and some breakthrough research which has excited you the most in recent time?
Okay, my inspiration is Steve Jobs. He has always been my inspiration, and I follow some of his mantras. And he has, I mean, he really changed the way we look at products, right? And he really changed the way where the way we use our phones to the way we listen to music. He really changed that he created that dent that we are looking for in the world. And that paradigm shift is what I'm trying to bring about with bioprinting. To see, and the best part Steve Jobs did was that he got people together. If you're looking at iTunes, he had to get multiple recording studios together to actually work together to come on iTunes. And that is something which only Steve Jobs could achieve. And what we are trying to do at NBIL is work as a platform where people can come in, work on the platform, and develop products that can actually change the world. So our team, our tech, our processes, our patents, all of these form the base, the foundation of the company, above which different verticals and different products are formed. And that's how, that's how we are looking at building the entire company. That is one. And an interesting one that really piqued my interest was Neuralink, that Elon Musk announced a few weeks ago, and he's a guy who's changed the world three times, I believe. One in PayPal, two with Tesla, and three with SpaceX. And I think this is the fourth thing that he's going to change the world with. Yeah, Hyperloop is still there, but I think it's still a work in progress. But Neuralink, I think, would be the next thing to understand. Our brain is so complex. It's the only organ you cannot bioprint because our brains are so unique to us. And to understand how the brain functions and to understand how we interpret emotions or how why we do the things we do or how we react the way we react, and also to help patients who undergo serious brain damage and nerve damage. I think it would be a really big game changer in the medicine industry. It's same on the lines of fixing organ transplantation. Imagine if a person is not able to see and you're able to give him sight just by changing the way his brain is perceiving certain things, or not able to walk and suddenly he's able to walk just by the way he's perceiving things, or training his mind to look at things in a different way. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, so I think we are in a fantastic time in human history. I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
are understanding ourselves and our environment better. Like
yeah,
we know that we've got 3.4 billion base pairs of DNA. We are understanding
yeah,
what the DNA does, and we there are people who are synthesizing DNA. They're synthesizing
yeah,
human life as we know. Neuralink obviously is we got 80 billion neurons and 100 trillion synapses,
yeah,
and how they wire and fire
yeah,
create each and everything, like how I speak, the words that comes out of my mouth, my five senses. It's because
yeah,
how I perceive the world around us. And now you said we cannot bioprint the brain, but what with
yeah,
Neuralink, what they're trying to do is upload and download the data. Obviously, it's
yeah,
in a very, very nascent stage at this point in time. But
yeah,
what if that technology, maybe in another 30, 50, 100 years, I'm sure it's going to happen much,
yeah,
much faster. But what if
mm,
we come to a point where we can completely understand the language of our brains, how our neurons fire and wire, what it does? And
mm,
if we can create an interface and copy the entire neuronal data onto a computer, that's going to be something which is going to be, I think, it will disrupt the world unfathomably. And
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
like you said, Neuralink and Elon Musk is doing some crazy things. And when that happens,
yeah,
we'll get into the Matrix kind of world where everything will be uploaded,
yeah,
downloaded. I mean, it sounds crazy and science fiction-y at this point in time, but there are
yes,
some really credible organizations who are working on brain computer interface, DAPA being one of
yeah,
them. I think we're entering a crazy, crazy world. So tell me,
yeah.
given that this is such a niche domain and not many people know about it, what would be
Mhm.
the career aspect in this industry?
Like I mentioned before, bioprinting is a field that has different disciplines that come together. So you have people who are working on design, who are working on the aspect of designing those structures, the 3D printed structures that you see on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you go. But apart from that, our designers also work on designing 3D bioprinters. So designing the machines, designing the components that go behind them. We have engineers from the mechanical, biomedical side, electronic side, who understand how different components work and with respect to 3D printing, and apply those same concepts to bioprinting and also improve on those concepts or come out with new concepts. If you're looking at the biotech side of things, we have people who are working on biomaterials who concoct these formulations that actually hold the cells within, your bioprinting setup. And then you have the cell biologists who actually work with the cells. You you have people who are working as a cross function between these two teams. We have the engineering, the biotech, and in between we have the bioprinting team. So the bioprinting team's focus is to bring these two teams together and ensure that there's a nice. If I draw a Venn diagram, the bioprinting team would be right in the middle, and then apart from that, obviously, there are companies right now. I think there are close to around 120 to 130 companies globally in 3D bioprinting, and all of them are working on some aspect or the other. They're working on either skin, bone, or they're building printers, or they're making biomaterials. So the career aspects as such doesn't only come into R&D, but also with how these companies want to market themselves, what kind of IP they want to generate, what kind of regulatory framework that they're going to look at. So the career aspects come in R&D, yes, as an engineer, as a scientist, but also as a marketing professional, you can help these companies grow. You can work with companies. I think in a space where, in an age where unemployment is on the rise and companies are cutting down costs, people should look at niche areas of research, and that's why we actually launched our new platform, Next Big Learning. So the specific focus for that was to upskill people in the domain of 3D bioprinting, and we just launched it like probably on August 25th. And the specific focus is that right now people are losing their jobs. It's better to be in a niche domain where you can fit in, and probably you're looking for your next project, and bioprinting could be a very interesting space to be in. And it's a small community right now. I wouldn't say it's too large, like any other industry, like the 3D printing industry, if you want to say. Bioprinting is a small niche within the 3D printing industry, and the career aspects are huge because it's multidisciplinary. It's not just one aspect.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah, thank you, Piyush. It was a pleasure talking to you. Yes, I think it's an exciting space, and I think we'll wish you the very best to you and your team. Now, I'm sure possibly maybe in like 10 years' time or within that, we will have something which is people will not have to wait for organs. People will not have to die, waiting for those organs.
Yeah.
We're getting into an exciting space, and like you said, you spoke about your educational platform, Next Big Learning. I think people need to understand that the world, the technology is going exponentially, and all linear or traditional education system, which is just maybe a degree driven, which doesn't really add value, is changing. It's getting disrupted. People are looking at, they're not looking at education. They're looking at what you can do, how resilient you are, how innovative you are. And these fields, which you say are niche, all of the frontier technology are at this point niche. Artificial intelligence, IoT, synthetic biology, 3D bioprinting, AR, VR, MR, it's niche. But if and only if these education institutes, these students, their parents understand that this is the future. This is going to transform the world. And if people understand the importance of it, and if they start getting into it right now, it's going to change the world. Obviously, I'm going to leave behind the link of Next Big Learning. And thank you once again for being part of Change I Am Possible podcast.
You so much.
Yes, we're living in fantastic times. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Piyush.